My name is Richard Burns. I live at 2105 Blackhawk Avenue in Springfield, Illinois. I'm going to ask my little sister to come up. We have a couple illustrations to show the board. I'm the brother of the late Patrick Burns, who was just mentioned, who was killed at the hands of Sangamon County deputies in 2010. I would like to thank Sam Cannon for introducing the referendum that calls for the ability to recall elected officials.
Yeah.
I had an issue with some Sangamon County officials when my brother's case happened in 2010, where a corrupt coroner system was exposed after providing such ludicrous causes of death that this very board called for her resignation. One thing that I'm going to say positive before we go ahead is that what happened back in 2010 with Susan Boone and the effects that it had on my family and how corrupt and distrusting I was with the county coroner, I would like to say that I would applaud the Sangamon County coroner, Jim Allman, who has turned this coroner system around in this county. So much so that I would advocate for this man to be a model for the rest of the country on how to turn around a corrupt system. I would like to invite all of the board members to attend a private screening on August 30th of a documentary film that has been made about my brother's death. A film production company in Jacksonville, Florida has produced a documentary called Exposed Last Rites, which focuses on corruption and cover-up concerning death investigation and autopsy reports across our country. My brother's case is highlighted in this documentary. I have with me copies of documents obtained through FOIA requests that are the basis of this documentary, and would ask that these documents be submitted into the minutes of this meeting. My sister has a poster with graphic pictures of Pat immediately after the encounter. If these types of pictures are upsetting to you, I would suggest that you look away. My brother was unarmed and cooperative when 4 deputies approached him and tased him 21 times over a period of 15 minutes. He was beaten and hogtied by deputies. He was tased 4 times after he was hogtied. He was placed face down on a pillow and strapped tightly to a stretcher by the deputies, not any EMTs. We're going to leave a couple posters up that I have with me that show what at the time, the taser, or the Sangamon County rules and regulations said about tasers. Tasers should not be used on any person who is handcuffed or shackled. Tasers will not be used as a tool of coercion or punishment. Excessive use of a taser is forbidden. When this came out in the newspaper, it goes to show how the sheriff and the sheriff department went to whatever length it had to go to try to protect its boys. I have articles from the St. Journal Register where Sheriff Campbell said, "We don't feel you can fire too much. You need to use the taser until the person complies with our order." I question, does that also include when a person is hogtied? Sheriff Campbell, at the time, was the undersheriff, but still in charge. He said to the newspaper reporters that there was no indication that the deputies acted improperly. The man did not appear seriously injured at the time of the scene, but his condition deteriorated at Memorial. Other than being combative, he appeared fine when they put him in the ambulance. Sangamon County tried to say that drugs killed Patrick. The ISP, during their investigation, called the deputies victims. The newspaper came out and said tasers can be deadly. Last year, Patrick's death certificate was amended by Jim Allman, and the manner of his death was changed to homicide, and the cause of his death was restraint asphyxia. This is the exact cause and manner of death of Earl Moore Jr.
Yeah, right.
I approached Dan Wright and requested that he, like Jim Allman, have a fresh look at Pat's case. Because of the similarities to Earl Moore Jr.'s death, to determine if charges were warranted. He responded that he considered the case closed. John Schmidt, the state's attorney at the time, concluded that the use of force in Pat's case was justified. I tried to point out that with this new ruling by Coroner Allman, the case should be reopened. Schmidt didn't investigate this as a homicide. The coroner at the time came up with a cause of death which was called excited delirium. Excited delirium is a bogus term that police officers use around the country to justify homicides and police brutality.
Right.
It has been refuted by the American Medical Association, the World Health Association, the American Psychiatric Association, the National Association of Medical Examiners, and the American College of Emergency Physicians, that it doesn't exist. And yet, police departments around this country are still using it as a justifiable cause of death and explanation how people die in police custody. Even though Mr. Wright said I could review all the items from the Smith investigation, I was denied, as I was back in 2010, the opportunity to view a video of the incident. I was told by Illinois State Police, even though I had records of this video being placed into an evidence locker at the Illinois State Police, that this video had been destroyed. They couldn't tell me by who, they couldn't tell me by when, or when it happened. All they told me was, you don't get to look at it. I have a colleague in the audience right now who's going to be talking later, Cindy Cody. She's the mother of Jameson Cody. And in that incident, there was video that seemed to have gone missing. The young lady mentioned Mr. Carlock, who died in 2007. There was video in that instance that went missing. If this county wants to regain the trust which is lost from our citizens, show us the videos.
Yeah.
Don't hide evidence. Don't cover up. There seems to be a conflict of interest in our country. It exists in Sangamon County, and it exists in other places, where there's a conflict of interest because the body that pays these deputies is also the same body that has to pay out lawsuits in the event that these deputies are found culpable in deaths.
Right.
How can a state's attorney investigate misconduct and also then try to defend misconduct? I believe that's what happened here. It seemed like it wasn't important enough for Mr. Wright to pursue a homicide investigation in spite of his own coroner's finding of a homicide. I was never given any satisfactory answers as to why Peggy Finley and Peter Cadigan were formally charged with strapping down a defenseless Earl Moore Jr. stomach down on a stretcher but the men who strapped a defenseless Patrick Burns down that way were never held accountable. Eyewitness accounts, taser logs, ambulance reports showed significant disparities from deputies' narratives. One fact that is not in dispute is that it was the deputies who placed Pat on the stretcher and strapped him down, not the EMTs. These deputies acknowledged this fact in their own reports. I would like to read to you an eyewitness account.
Are you kind
Sorry,
of...
man, the dude says in 10 minutes. I need to quit.
No, you can finish, but just can you kind of come to a conclusion fairly quickly?
I'll try.
Okay.
The eyewitness, the homeowner, that Pat was sitting placidly in her yard by mistakenly going to her home when he was upset and going through a mental health episode, that he was concerned, or he truly believed that his life was in danger. We opened up the window and we saw him in the ditch, and there were maybe 3 or 4 police officers around him, and I could see wires coming out of his chest. And I saw several more flashes where they, were using that tasing thing. He just kept screaming that they're trying to kill me. And the ambulance came and they tased him again and again. I mean, he just kept screaming. I would call for, like I've heard other people say in this room tonight, I would call for a private, independent investigation into the death of my brother. If the Sangamon County State's Attorney believes that there was no wrongdoing, then an investigation should show that. But I believe that State's Attorney, as I said, has a conflict of interest to protect the money, purse strings of the county. If the goal of this board is to ensure that its citizens are safe from its sheriff's deputies, or are they more concerned with protecting the system at the expense of our citizens?
Yeah.
If this county's true intention is to be fully transparent and rebuild the trust in this community, I am formally calling on Sangamon County to authorize an independent, unbiased homicide investigation. Pat's death was never investigated as a homicide. If Pat's death is not properly investigated as a homicide to determine if those responsible should be held accountable, you will never know if policies and procedures were not followed, or if they were not properly trained, or if reforms are needed in regards to restraint holds. If the message from this administration is that these types of restraints, if the message from this administration is that these types of restraints are okay, future deaths will inevitably happen again, as in the tragic death of Jameson Cody in 2021. And the citizens of this county will yet again be on the hook for expensive legal bills and settlements and verdicts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.